Once upon a time, nestled beside a very, very dark and sprawling forest, there was a quiet little village. This village was called Duskwood. It was a lovely place, really. Cottages with thatched roofs snuggled together like sleepy kittens. Flowers bloomed in little gardens, painting the village with splashes of red, yellow, and blue. Children played happily in the village square, their laughter echoing like sweet music. But right at the edge of Duskwood, where the neat gardens met the wild, tangled woods, stood something ancient and mysterious. This was the domain of the deep forest, a place full of shadows and secrets unknown to the cheerful villagers during their sunny days. This ancient thing was a tree, not just any tree, oh no. This tree was enormous, older than anyone in Duskwood could remember, perhaps even older than the village itself. Its trunk was gnarled and twisted, like an old man's wise, wrinkled face. Its branches reached out like long, bony fingers towards the sky, and sometimes it seemed towards the village. It stood as a silent, watchful guardian between the safety of the homes and the unknown depths of the forest. The children often looked at it from afar, wondering about its immense size and the stories their parents told. This special, slightly spooky tree had a very peculiar name, the Whispering Tree. Now, why was it called the Whispering Tree, you ask? Well, that was its biggest secret, and the reason most people felt a shiver down their spines when they spoke of it. You see, when the sun dipped below the horizon and the moon cast its silvery glow, the tree would begin to whisper. Yes, whisper. Not just any rustling of leaves in the wind, but soft, distinct whispers. Sometimes, if you were very quiet and listened very, very carefully, people said you could hear the tree whispering names. Imagine that, a tree calling out names in the dead of night. It was quite the talk of Duskwood, especially amongst the youngsters. Because of these strange nocturnal whispers, all the grown-ups in Duskwood had one very strict rule for their children. Listen carefully, they would say, their faces serious. You must never ever go near the Whispering Tree after sunset. Not for a dare, not for a bet, not for anything. The children would nod, their eyes wide. They knew the tree was a place of deep mystery, and perhaps, just perhaps, a little bit of scariness too. The whispers were intriguing, but the warning was strong, and most children were happy to stay tucked in their beds, far away from the murmuring giant at the forest's edge. In the village of Duskwood lived a young boy named Arjun. Arjun was a little different from the other children. While they played hide-and-seek and told silly jokes, Arjun often found his thoughts wandering towards the dark forest and its mysterious tree. He wasn't easily frightened. In fact, he was incredibly curious, and his heart was as brave as a little lion's. The stories of the Whispering Tree didn't just scare him, they sparked a fire of wonder inside him. He wanted to know why it whispered. He longed to understand its secrets. He simply had to find out the truth for himself, no matter what the grown-ups said. So one night, when the moon was a perfect glowing circle in the inky sky, Arjun made a big decision. He decided he had wondered enough. Tonight was the night. He would visit the Whispering Tree. He waited patiently in his little bed, listening until the snores of his parents rumbled through the house like distant thunder. Then, ever so carefully, he slipped out from under his warm blankets. He tiptoed across his room, quiet as a mouse, and gently opened his bedroom door. The entire village of Duskwood was hushed, bathed in moonlight, and seemed to be holding its breath. The path to the forest edge was darker than Arjun had imagined. Tall houses cast long dancing shadows that looked like spooky monsters reaching out to grab him. Every tiny rustle of leaves in the gentle night breeze sounded like the footsteps of a giant or the hiss of a lurking creature. Arjun's heart began to thump inside his chest like a fast drum. Thump, thump, thump. He was a little bit scared, yes, but his curiosity was much, much bigger than his fear. He clutched a small unlit lantern in his hand, just in case, and kept walking, one brave step after another, towards the looming silhouette of the great tree. Finally, he reached it. The Whispering Tree was even bigger and more imposing up close than it looked from the village. Its branches spread out wide, like a giant's welcoming, or perhaps warning, arms. The air around it was still and silent. Arjun stood at its base, looking up into its dark leaves. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft sighing sound, like a gentle breeze rustling through 1,000 dry leaves, formed a word. Arjun. it whispered. Then again, a little clearer. Arjun. The boy's eyes widened. And then, right there in the gnarled ancient bark, two soft glowing lights appeared, like gentle eyes opening. A kind, wise face slowly took shape in the wood of the tree. Arjun stared. His mouth fell open a tiny bit. A face in the tree, and it had whispered his name. But Arjun, being the brave lad he was, didn't scream. He didn't turn and run away as fast as his legs could carry him, which is probably what most other children would have done. Instead, he took a small, shaky breath and looked right at the glowing eyes in the tree bark. Hello, he managed to say, his voice barely a squeak, but a brave squeak nonetheless. The face in the tree seemed to smile, a slow, creaky, ancient kind of smile. It wasn't a scary smile at all. It was gentle and looked very, very old and wise. Greetings, brave little one, the tree whispered, its voice a low rumble, like the sound of deep roots shifting in the earth, mixed with the rustle of countless leaves. You are Arjun, are you not? I have seen you from afar, watching me with curious eyes. The tree paused, its glowing eyes twinkling. Do not be afraid. I am the guardian of Duskwood. For centuries I have stood here, watching over your village, keeping it safe from unfriendly things that sometimes wander from the deep, dark parts of the forest. I am a friend to your people, a silent protector through many nights. The tree's voice then grew a little more urgent, a little more troubled. But now, it continued, a note of concern in its leafy sigh, I find myself in a spot of bother. A very naughty, mischievous spirit has escaped from the deepest, darkest part of the woods. This spirit delights in causing trouble and spreading fear. It wants to creep into your lovely village and fill it with shadows and unhappy dreams. It is growing strong, and while I can hold it back for now, I am old, and my own strength is not quite enough to trap it and send it away for good. This troublesome spirit, the tree whispered, its branches quivering slightly as if a cold wind had passed through them, is trying to break free of my hold. I need help, Arjun. I need the help of a brave human heart. I sensed your courage and your curiosity. That is why I called your name. You are the one who can assist me. To trap this spirit properly, it instructed, you must bring two special things from your village. First, a complete circle of pure salt taken from your village temple. And second, a small silver bell, one that rings with a clear, true sound. Arjun listened very carefully to the wise old tree. He understood. The tree was in trouble, and so, potentially, was his whole village. He knew, deep in his brave little heart, exactly what he must do. There was no time to waste. I'll get them, he declared, his voice now firm and full of determination. He turned and ran as fast as his legs could carry him, back through the moonlit shadows towards Duskwood. The village was still asleep. He reached the small, peaceful temple. Its doors were unlocked. Inside, it was quiet and smelled of old wood and incense. He found a small sack of pure white salt and a tiny, shiny silver bell on a shelf, just as the tree had described. With the salt clutched in one hand and the silver bell in the other, Arjun raced back to the whispering tree. The air around the tree felt colder now, and a faint, shadowy wisp seemed to be struggling against the tree's branches. Quickly, Arjun, the tree urged, its voice strained. Arjun didn't hesitate. He carefully, meticulously, poured the salt from the sack, making a perfect, unbroken white circle on the ground all around the base of the enormous tree. As the circle was completed, the shadowy wisp let out a faint, angry hiss and seemed to recoil. Now, Arjun, the bell! Ring the silver bell with all your might, the tree commanded. Arjun raised the small silver bell. He shook it hard. A beautiful, clear, bright chime rang out through the silent night. Ding, ding, ding! The sound was pure and strong. As the melodic notes filled the air, the shadowy wisp shrieked, a thin, reedy sound, and began to shrink and fade. It twisted and turned, trying to escape the circle of salt and the piercing sound of the bell, but it could not. The whispering tree's great branches, like strong arms, reached down. They gently but firmly enfolded the fading wisp, drawing it deep into the tree's ancient trunk. Then, all was still. A profound peace settled over the spot. The tree let out a long, contented sigh, like a happy giant finally resting. The eerie whispers around it completely stopped. The face in the bark gave Arjun a warm, thankful smile. The next morning, Arjun, bursting with his incredible story, told everyone in Duskwood what had happened. At first, of course, the grown-ups chuckled and didn't quite believe him. A talking tree, a trapped spirit. It sounded like a wonderful fairy tale. But they soon noticed something different. The whispering tree was quiet, truly quiet. There were no more unsettling whispers at night. A new sense of peace and safety seemed to settle over the entire village. Arjun, the brave little boy, became a local hero. And though the tree never spoke with a full voice again, sometimes, on very dark and stormy nights, if you happened to be passing by and listened with a very attentive ear, you might just hear the wind rustling through its leaves, forming two soft words. Thank you, Arjun.